Good morning, good afternoon, happy holidays, everybody, wherever you may be. Appreciate you joining us today for our lunch and learn around Acumatica and how it is helping companies streamline their processes and drive improved financial performance. I'm Jay Hersey. With me is Alec Bagdasarian, our Chief Solutions Architect. I have an agenda here I'd like to go over with you today and then get into it. We'd like to give you some introductions as to who Acumatica is and who IIG is. We're ultimately wanting to give you enough of an introduction. It's with only an hour. That's about as best we can do as an introduction as to kind of where Acumatica plays, some of the distinctive competencies, and where people are finding some value. And if it catches your interest, we'd love to spend some more time with you and talk about your specific needs. We'll go over a brief demonstration of how to navigate the menuing system and how to personalize screens in Acumatica. And then Alec will go into a little bit more granular discussions about the areas of distribution, assembly and manufacturing, field service and rental. At first blush, they seem like they're unrelated, but you get under the covers and there's a lot of common functionality that's required. That's why we're bundling these together. I want to answer any questions that you have at the end and then move on. So with that, let's get started with our introduction. We covered this already, and who's Acumatica? Well, they're a developer of ERP software based in Seattle, Washington. The software they developed is designed to operate in the cloud, and in fact, from the first line of code, it was designed to operate in the cloud. It hasn't been ported to it. Acumatica is solely focused on the mid-size and small markets. I think that's a little unusual in the industry. Many companies try and have solutions for all size companies. I think it's a little distracting, and Acumatica, their focus on the mid-market and small market shows up in a lot of ways. Acumatica delivers their software and associated services through a network of partners like IIG. And a few other things distinctive about Acumatica is that it is not only 100% cloud-based, but it's able to operate on anything that runs a web browser. It is also Alexa and Siri enabled, so it's easily accessed. The Acumatica has an interesting licensing model that is being appreciated by a lot of people. It is not your standard by user fees for licensing. It comes with unlimited users, and it is billed by consumption. Think your water bill, think power bill. So based on consumption. What is getting traction is that Acumatica users are able to add a user anywhere they need that improves the workflow of the company. They don't have to stop and go, okay, to do this, even if this person could be of benefit for an hour a week. The discussion around having to buy a license for this person, yes, no, let's figure out a different way to do it. Now you can optimize with this model, you can optimize workflows. And Acumatica, this licensing model gives a very predictable cost. No matter what, if whatever your transaction volume is, next year and 2 years, you'll know exactly what the costs are because it's published by Acumatica. Acumatica is a global company with over 8,000 clients. The first client was installed in 2009, and since then, they've had very good success. They've earned a spot being the fastest growing ERP company in the world. And that, as I say, they earned that, and by providing good product and good everything associated with it. G2's customer satisfaction survey puts Acumatica at the top of the list. That's important to a lot of people to know that customers are pleased with what they're getting. Acumatica also hosts a free university that is available. Online classes are available to their clients whenever they'd like it. It doesn't really replace implementation, but it sure is great to have if there's new employees that are on board or an employee changes responsibility in the company. They want a refresher. Unfortunately, it's too common that there is knowledge drain as there's turnover in companies, and the effectiveness of the software platform really diminishes. This helps protect that for their clients. Acumatica being a single platform for all related applications to run the business means that entry is done one time and that you can get dashboard views of any kind of operational insight that is desired within the company. Here's a glance at some of the clients that Acumatica has that you may recognize. One of my favorites here, KFC. Also, you can see that divisions of Honda and Mitsubishi are also clients. There are distributors and service companies listed also that they do business with. Enough about enough about Acumatica. Let's talk a little bit about IIG. We're headquartered in Southern California, and we are a gold certified partner of Acumatica. We have about 40 employees and have been providing business process management solutions for over 25 years. Our industry expertise centers around manufacturing and production and distribution, field service, and rental equipment processing. And as I made comment earlier, there's a lot of overlap in the needs of each of these, so it makes some sense. Acumatica is not only, IIG is not only a gold certified partner of Acumatica, we have earned the Innovation Partner of the Year from Acumatica. Okay, a little bit of an overview there. Let's go ahead and jump into the product and show you some of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit about the menuing system, security, navigating around Acumatica, and then Alec is going to pick up the ball and talk a little bit more granularly around some of the functional areas that we're helping with different in the different industries. Okay, I've logged in already, and the security system will control what I can see and what I can't see, as well as let me log in. And I'm wearing my receivables hat right now. This is what we're looking at is the receivables menu, the things that I would need to do in my daily routine, whether it be run reports of any type, if I need to do processes like invoicing or printing statements. So the menu items on the left bring me into those functional areas and give me essentially a similarly looking menu to get to what I need. If it is, as an example, purchasing, you still have the same categories, reports that may be needed to be done, dealing with vendors, processes and transactions that may need to be done. Same with somebody in inventory. They would go in here to do what they need with an inventory, whether it be, again, reports or receiving inventory in. You may notice that there are stars. I have stepped into the opportunity. So your salespeople would be in here. They would have their own, be able to do their own quotes and manage their own opportunities. But you'll see that there are stars in front of some of these items. As easy as it is to navigate through the menus of Acumatica, you can star anything that you get into regularly, and it creates a shortcut. And you get to the shortcuts that you've set up through your own favorites list. And these are the items for my login that have been starred that show up in my favorites list. So the things I do every day are right here, and I can get right into it. All right, what I'd like to show a little bit is let's talk about looking up a customer record. when you look up actually any record within Acumatica, the format is very similar. It has the records listed. It has the columns that are listed for each one of the records. You have the ability, the individual user has the ability to streamline and personalize the screens so they can improve their functionality. One example is you can move columns around to have them in any way that they want them. You're able also to add and take off columns depending on what's important to you. These are the columns that are listed on this page. I can take them off. I can add other columns to it. So it's wonderful for the users. The screens can also, the user can ask to sort the columns to get to what they're after. As an example here, if I want to sort by country, I can go sort in ascending or descending order, as well as put in it equals or does not equal. And let's just do a quick sort here by ascending. It shows how it changed it for us. And this is true not only in any column, but across Acumatica. Now, here's an example. Let's say in my job, I'm responsible for only New York City. Well, I can pull up only New York City through the same sorting mechanism, or I can set up a filter with one click for just to show me New York City clients. And these filters are very, very flexible. Here we have it, city equals New York. Let's say my responsibility was New York and Boston. I would essentially put city equals New York or city equals Boston, and it would pull out what I want at a glance. It also includes Boolean logic, so if you're a finance person and dealing with numbers, a controller or something, you can have greater than, less than in these sorts. Okay, let's do a lookup here. I'm going to look up a customer that is ABC Studios. Let's try them. ABC, I put in ABC, and it immediately brings up for me anything that starts with ABC. We're after ABC Studios. So let's select them, and it brings me up their customer record. And basic information around address, phone numbers, websites, primary contacts. You'll see this across all of Acumatica. When you bring up a record, it has tabs for additional information depending on what you're looking for. It defaults to the general. Let's say I want to see the contacts. It brings me up the contacts. Now, these tabs can be, through the security system, can be hidden if they're not relevant to a person, or they can be set up so they can see them, but they can't make any changes to them. Very flexible security system. We get questions about the ability to put notes on records. I want to show an example here for a customer record. And again, this is true for any record in the Acumatica system. There's the ability to put notes on it. It's highlighted yellow there, so it's indicating that I do have some notes. This is saying that the company presidents are good friends, and it's also making a comment here that they're slow paying. And you can put any kind of note in there you want for this record. Now, also, we get questions about people like to have notes pop up if they get into a record, or so they're alerted immediately. You can add pop-up notes, and I'll let you guys decide if you want to, which one of these you want to put in here so everybody sees it when they pull up this account. All right, so another thing that is valuable within the Acumatica system, and it's included with it, is a light document management system, which means that if you have documents associated with a customer, a vendor, any kind of record, a transaction, Acumatica allows you to store those documents associated with them. And it's telling me there are 2 documents stored with this customer record. And it looks like there's a service contract associated with them, and the person that put it in was able to put a comment here to add some clarity to what the file is about. How do you get records? Study store documents with the record. You just simply drag it and drop it here like you do when you're doing an email and you want to put an attachment. It's as simple as that. Okay, let's see. A couple other things we want to share with you is, one other comment that I do want to make. We see people using that document management system for the service and rental companies may put a picture of a damaged piece of equipment. Could be contracts like I showed. That can be very valuable. All right, now, no matter where you are within the Acumatica, no matter what screen you're on, you'll always see the banner at the top, and there's a search function here. It's a global search, kind of like you see in Google, but it's just for the Acumatica platform. If I want to search for, again, let's do ABC Studios. The first thing that Acumatica does is it looks to see if there's a menu item that may be related to this search. And what the benefit of that is, if it's something that the user is doing, they don't do every day, they're not sure where to go to get to that menu item, they can just do a quick search, get to it, get it taken care of, and get back into what they do normally on a day-to-day basis. It'll also search for help topics, which can be very valuable, particularly getting started and getting up and running, or if, again, you're into a new area or somebody has new responsibilities. What I'm going to ask it to do is to search for transactions and a customer or any kind of account profiles, whether it be vendors or anything. And here it brought up ABC Studios, select that, and it brings up the record that we just saw here, which is ABC Studios, their customer record, address information, the tabs that are the same across all records. All right. Now, the last thing that one of the last things I want to show you is Acumatica has an initiative that they're calling No Code, Low Code, which essentially is aimed at, too often, companies that are using products find themselves in a position where they got to go to the vendor for technical help to get a report out or to do some things. And what they're trying to do is make the functionality of those things that typically need to have a person from the vendor, a technical person, get it in the hands of the end user and let them do it. And I want to show you a couple examples of that. One is the notification system that Acumatica has. Acumatica can send out automatic emails and text messages based on things that it sees that you've told it need attention if Acumatica sees it, and to bring that attention to the appropriate person. It's like having somebody looking at Acumatica and go, okay, tell so-and-so that this is an issue and needs to be looked at, and it's monitoring this, and that's a wonderful way to get tapped on the shoulder if something is needing attention that you deem important to know. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the workflow engine that Acumatica has built into it. It's able to, how it gets used is it can be set up to help mirror processes that are currently in place within Acumatica. So this step, next step, next step. It also can be used to help instill and enforce new processes that are put in place, because people always want to go back to what they've been doing, and help control that, reduce errors. And again, these two items that are examples of this no-code, low-code initiative that are designed to be for the end client to be able to do themselves. All right, now the last thing that I wanted to go over with you is the dashboard system, the dashboarding, which is essentially a graphical insight into operations, financial or operations, at a glance and real time. And the dashboards can be set up by user, so only that user sees them. This is the list of all the dashboards on this system. Management may have their own dashboard. The sales manager may have their dashboard. Finance may have their dashboard. Let's look at this controller dashboard that we've set up here. They can represent the information graphically. They can be pie charts. They can be informational blocks. As an example, this cash position graph here, each data point. It tells us the value of each data point. Down here is another example of a graph that's overdue balances, and it gives the name, and it tells us the information about it. You're also able to drill down into these things. I'm going to drill down into this account to see exactly what the aging is and get more detail on that balance. And if I need even more detail, I can go into Evolution computers and their account and get the additional detail that I need. Informational blocks. Not only can they be provided for at a glance, but you can color code them. Here, cash on hand is in good shape, all green. We're seeing overdue payments or over 90. That's getting into the red zone, needs attention right now. Cash expected in the black, we're good to go. And again, you can drill down into these items and get more detail, expected cash in the next 30 days. I made comment, this is all real time. If I hover over, you can see it says it was updated 1 minute ago, this item. Okay, what I've tried to show today is a little bit about the menuing system and the shortcuts and how security works, how you look up accounts and how the lookup and the navigation is the same no matter what you're looking up, a transaction, a vendor, or a customer like we did. You're able to personalize screens, capture notes on any kind of record, whether it be a customer, a vendor, or transaction, and also capture documents associated with that makes sense for you to do. The global search that gets you immediately into the search menu items, search help items, or get to virtually anything in Acumatica. And then, of course, the real-time dashboards. All right, with that, I'm going to pass the ball over to Alec to go into a little bit more detail about some of the industry-specific functionality that you can expect.
Great,
Alec?
Thank you, Jay. I'm waiting for me to be able to share the screen.
Okay, I'm working on that now. There you go.
Great, thank you so much. So thank you for joining us today. I'm Alec Bagg, the Steering the Product Specialist. I'm going to start with this PowerPoint presentation, and after that, I'll start showing you the actual program. So as Jay mentioned, we're showing you a demonstration today that covers all aspects of Acumatica, from field service to rental to work orders for repairs to point of sale. So I'm going to start with dashboard. The first dashboard I'm going to show you is the rental dashboard, where it would show you your rental transactions that are in the system, the missing and damaged, what products are on rent, what orders are going on for the enter date range, and the same thing with what orders are coming back. The next thing I'm going to show you is the work orders that are in the system. And this could be repair, assembly, work order transactions that you could see, you could drill down, it showed your capacity for the last 12 months by a work center, as well as what's planned for production for the next few days. So the way it works out, every time you enter a sales order, the system would come back and give you an available to promise date, so you can communicate that to the customer. And here we're seeing a drag and drop scheduling board that gives you the ability to have a visual presentation of all the work orders that you have that you need to work on. Now the colors indicate the status of it. You can drag and drop a task from one machine center to the other, or from one day to the next. Next, I want to show you the calendar board. Now, this calendar board is part of the field service module, and what it does, it lets you schedule your technicians, who needs to go out, when to do what type of work. You could have scheduling boards that show you all the appointments for a branch or for a technician or a group of technicians. Again, you drag and drop and unassign appointments from here to this body of the calendar board, and then schedule that work with that technician. The next thing I want to show you is the stock item form. This is where you add all your items into this, whether it's a service item, whether it's a rental item, whether it's an inventory item. You will have a record in the stock items form for it. The way it works out, it would have the pricing by bill code for rentals, and you can have daily, weekly, monthly pricing, or your pricing could also be date-based, some other information. We will also keep detailed record for every piece of equipment, what repairs you've done, components to it for field service operation, rentals, every time you went out, came back, inspection results, and on and on. You can assign colors to different statuses that we allow you to have for a piece of equipment. So here we're looking at the model item AL6600, which is a crane, and these are the different equipments that you have. And again, you can create views for what's in stock, what's in inspection, and on and on. Now, if you click on any one of those lines, then you see additional information specific to that equipment number, the make, model, manufacturer, the general information, the current meter reading, and so forth. Every time, as I mentioned, every time it goes out and comes back, folks in the warehouse can take pictures and capture a signature, enter notes, and that's tracked for that piece of equipment. We'll have visibility on that. You could also enter the components to this trailer. It has a lift gate, has a light, it has tires. So if you do any repair work, you can enter that repair and basically tell the system that either the equipment got replaced at the customer side or a component of an equipment got replaced at the customer side, and that's all part of entering the service work order, which can kind of comes back to the equipment record and makes the changes accordingly. Here we're looking at a sales order transaction. So sales orders are entered in Acumatica. You start by entering a customer number. You have different tabs to group different type of information. Document detail has your items that you're processing for that sales order transaction. Again, the nice thing about it is sales order transaction could contain in it items that you're selling, the service items, rental items, all are part of the same transaction. And right from here in the sales order entry program, you could tell it what project it's for, and depending on the project setting, the sales order could basically generate the invoice, or could load information to the project for project to do the billing. If it's a service line, you could create a schedule on the calendar for someone to go out and do what they need to do, as well as generate a manufacturing work order if you need to have a job shop where you're adding some functionality, some features to an item, and you're deciding to invoice the customer for it. And this is when it will give you an available date to promise to the customer, so they know when they can receive the product. Service orders, I mentioned service orders could be auto-generated from the sales order module. They could be auto-generated for scheduled services from the service contracts that you created on the system, or you could just come to the program and create a service order into the system manually. And again, just like the sales order, it has its different tabs, details, where you enter the different items, you enter the equipment that you'll be working on, and as part of it, you will tell it the specific component of the equipment that you're repairing. So it does all of that tracking for you, depending on how you've set up the equipment record. Notice you can also have rental items entered here. So you can have a rental item if they go out and decide that a piece of equipment needs to be repaired. It's going to take so many days, and they want to start a rental transaction to basically send some rental spots while you're repairing the product. Of course, Acumatica also is a field service module that has a mobility piece to it. So folks in the handheld could basically look at their appointment listing. Service manager could see the task. Expense claims could be entered. So equipment list at the customer side could be viewed, and the rental orders could be added from the handheld device as well. This is the work order entry. Work orders have types. A work order type could be an assembly, could be a disassembly, could be a partial disassembly, could be a customer repair that you don't have the equipment for. And of course, every time you enter a work order, depending on how you've defined the kit specification and the routing that you link to the item, the system knows how many transactions to generate. You could generate a work order which uses the routing to print a traveler document where it tells you what are the different steps that go into manufacturing the item and what should be done in each step of the manufacturing process. So both labor and material instructions all get printed here. This is the manufacturing transaction. So again, a manufacturing transaction is created for each step in the routing process. You could group which inventory item should be loaded into each manufacturing transaction. We support things like outside processes and so forth, so you can do that as well. This is the routing steps. So basically for any item that has this routing step linked to it, this would be the steps that would be performed. Notice that you have the ability to enter QC functions for each routing step. So maybe that step has 2 QC functions. This has 1, this has 4. And you can enter even if some steps require supervisory approval. In addition to setting up QC steps for routing steps, you can also set up QC functions that need to be performed for each item by type of function. So you can have a different QC function when you're doing a kit assembly. You can have a different QC functions that when you're doing a field service or PO receipt or rental goes out, rental returns. So you enter all of these functions, all these QC functions here. Again, it's for this item gets loaded from its item class 2 here. The nice thing about it, you can have grouping and you can print documents basically that, if you want to print an inspection sheet and someone having a sheet to work on, or all of this information is loaded onto a screen where based on that, they can go through, filter it for a QC grouping or an item or a serial number and perform the QC functions that they need to perform. Here on this screen, we're able to see time-based availability. So again, if you're a rental organization, you enter any date range, and for the entered date range for that equipment, the system will show you what you have on rental orders, what you have on rent. Basically, rental orders and order you have in the system. On rent is when they've actually delivered or the customer has picked up the rental and started, which triggers the billing and return functions. In addition to that, you also have an ability to go to a tab on the sales order for all the entered order items, see the availability. So if you have situations where you've entered an order a month earlier, a few days before the rental start date, you want to visit the order and see if it's been able to return the products that they were supposed to, or they return it in the working condition, or it needs to be repaired. So all of you'll have visibility over availability information there. Now we do time-based availability, so at any time you will find out if it's December 16th today, and I want to know what I have available on the Christmas day. I could put that, enter that date and see the availability. You could reserve equipment specific for a job, so that gets tracked in. Now, depending on the result of the inspection, you could change the status to a status that is set up requiring repair, and that equipment would show up in this worksheet, and by selecting it using the routing that is linked to that item and that status, system would know whether it's creating one step to do the repair work or the multiple steps to do the repair work. All the billing is managed, whether it's a sales item or a rental item. Depending on the relationship you have with the customer, you could set up the rental to be billed upfront upon return or periodically. And the system, you could use the Acumatica's automation feature and even generate the invoices automatically without anyone touching any of the transactions, or you can come into this screen, select certain orders, click process, and it will go ahead and generate the invoices that are needed for those transactions. Earned rental revenue at any point in time will show the earned revenue for any item, but at the item level, at the transaction level, rental revenue, invoice amount, number of days on rent. You could do it for an item, class of an item. Customers have good visibility over your rental revenue, rental returns. You can return one or multiple items on one return transaction. You can enter what's missing and damaged. And if something is missing or damaged, you can still process the return, giving the customer a grace period. If they do good within those days, you can just mark that, track the missing and damaged transaction is closed, or you could decide to invoice the customer for it. in this case, we decided to invoice the customer for this item. System will go ahead and generate an invoice for it. This is where you're performing an inspection for something that has come back. Again, inspections could be done at an item, serial number level, or could be specific functions, the electrical hoist, generally in a hook, and so forth and so on. And for each function, you have the ability to mark it as completed. As Jay mentioned, Acumatica is a very, very feature-rich product, from project accounting to service to manufacturing. Now I have some screens here for the point of sale. So if you're a yard and you also want to have access to point of sale transaction, you can have workstations set up. So they work with credit card terminal. You can rent things. You can just process a rental where the customer is picking up the merchandise and walking away with it, or just entering a product that needs to be, whether it's a sell item that needs to be shipped to them, delivered to them, or a rental item that needs to be shipped, or in the special item that you're taking the money on the point of sale screen, but then you need to, it's a special purchase, you need to generate a purchase order for it. So it supports all those functions. Register open, close, so it will keep track of your balances that each register should have, so you can reconcile those. It also does a cashier function. So if you have a situation where folks are just helping the customer, then the customer needs to go to the cashier to pay for the transaction, it would support that function as well. As I mentioned, EMV credit card terminals and so forth, working with credit card terminals to do the processing. It comes with a customer portal, so customers on the portal can have visibility over what products are available for the enter dates range or generate a rental order in the field. So that's a quick overview, PowerPoint based. I'm going to start showing you the program. The very first thing I wanted to do was to just go to the rental dashboard, start from there, then we'll start doing the transaction. We'll enter a sales order transaction and so on. So again, dashboards are many. You have sales by salesperson, you have rental dashboards that we saw in the PowerPoint, you have dashboards to show the work order, so very powerful. Now we're going to go to the sales order entry and start a sales order transaction. So when you started a function like sales order and the purchase order, you have an option of just starting in an add mode or new record add addition mode, or just see a list. Now Acumatica has Jay mentioned, you can create a lot of filters, and the filters are user defined, and it will just show you those transactions by sales order, a branch sales order, or all the sales order. When you click on the plus sign, it lets you start a sales order transaction. So here I can start my customer number. I can just give it any part of the name. It would show me the names that match that, so I can select one of the customers. It loads from the customer record into the transaction information specific to that customer. The ship information, financial information, discounting, and discounts can be done at a document level, at a sales order level, at an item level, at a specific customer. This payment would show you if you've entered a deposit for it, and on and on. Again, if you come to the details tab, you can enter an item to the system. Item entry could be as easy as start typing in the any part of the name and see the item, or it could be by clicking on add rental items or add sales items and have visibility over different group of items. Just see those items, you click on them and adds those items, then you go to the next grouping and add those items. So you can build your orders by gradually adding more and more items to the order. Now, items could even be grouped together, and they could be optional. So if you're selling a tractor, and that tractor, when shipped out or rented out, you want to ask questions about the scoop, you want to ask the question about the hammer, and so forth. Those all could be set up as options. The same thing with training that you need to perform. And the system would ask those questions, and based on the answers to those questions, load the appropriate number of components into your order. So again, adding items, you can get really fancy, grouping sales and rental items, or both of them combined, or just come here and click on the plus sign and adding the item that you want to process to the order. So here you're adding an item. It's a rental item. We can see that because the rental item got checked. It's important to point out that on a given sales order, you can have rental items, sales item, crewing items. Right from here, you can create manufacturing work orders. Right from here, you could create service work order. They're all part of just the Acumatica functionality. So you have complete visibility, over different modules, availability of resources for scheduling the job, or availability of resources to schedule and give available date to promise to the customer. Notice also, if you have an integration with project accounting, it would allow you to enter a project number here. So in addition, you have, of course, Acumatica's multi-company, multi-branch structure. So right here, you're entering transactions that could be for multiple companies, multiple currency, dealing with all different modules, all Acumatica modules. So here I can come in here and tell it that it's quantity of 1. So I just basically entered the quantity 1. Now, when I entered my customer number, it brought from the customer record what I'm allowing that customers to have as far as billing code. What's the default billing code? We have told it is monthly. I could do things like what do I do with the when it's returned? But I can invoice it on set day of the month. My procedure is such that I invoice on the 20th of the month, 31st of the month, or 10th of the month. I can change that, set that date, and the system will ask me, what do I do with the first partial invoice? What do I do when they return it on the 20th? And basically, my last billing was on the 10th. What do I do for those 10 days? And for any one of these, the first invoice or when it's been returned for the partial period, you can tell it what to do. Again, from the customer record, you can tell it whether you want to build a period in advance or first period in advance, or if you have multiple shipments, bring them all to the same cycle date. So these are a lot of things that I'm going over. So if you're not a rental operation, then just ignore the rental part. That tab would not be there. You would still enter your items and you'll be able to process. But if you're a rental item, then you can tell it how many periods for. Now, rental could be for unlimited number of periods, or it could be for set number of periods, and it would tell you when it's going to invoice. The nice thing about it is if you have multiple items on a rental contract, each one could also have its own date range and so forth. So if I click on create shipment, Acumatica would create my shipment transaction. So Acumatica allows you to define different order type, and for the different order type, you can tell if it's a one-step order or if it's an order that you need to create a shipment and the shipment needs to be confirmed, and on and on. So here we're going to click on it and just select create shipment. It's going to create shipment. Now, notice that you also have a group code, and the group code is loaded into the line items. So if you have products that need to be shipped to different part of the construction site, you can assign them group code, and basically that would be loaded. You could palletize products by group code and all that. So here we created a shipment transaction. This shipment transaction is for the item that we've entered. You can capture a signature again that would be kept with the shipment. Now, as I mentioned, Acumatica has an order pick and pack process where you folks on the handheld device, they can scan the items and ship the items and receive the items. And because of time, I'm not going to go over that, but of course, reach out to Jay as needed, and we will schedule a demonstration to show you specific information for that. So here we have an item. It's a serialized item. So what the system is going to ask me is to give me a serial number, which again, as we talked about, the serial number could be entered at the time of order entry if you know what specific number you want to ship to the customer. Otherwise, you come in here during the shipping process and you select the serial number, and you can see the list of serial numbers. It will show you what you have available by item. You could tell it with the meter information. If the meter information should be entered when you're entering the shipment, or when you're doing the return, or their customers are allowed to do that. Now, if I mark this confirmed shipment, basically if it's a sales item, this is when you will issue the inventory out of stock, post inventory and cost. Otherwise, if it's a rental item, you will mark it on rent. So basically that's when this process ends. Now from this point on, that quantity, that serial number that we've entered, their system would know that that serial number is on rent. So I'm just going to bring up the serial number here, so we'll see that. So again, this is the screen where you come to see information specific to a serial number. I'm going to take us to the place where I'll see information for that item, and then from the information for that item, I'll come in here and show you information for each unit of item, so you can relate what we're keeping at which level. Even though we went over it in the PowerPoint presentation, I'd like to do that in here as well. So Acumatica, as Jay mentioned, is a search at the transaction level, or at the Google-like search that would go through and see all transactions. So we're looking at this item CTL 2500, which is a Great Dane tractor, and you could click that downward and just see more information on it. If you want to save up some room, you could do that and see that. This is where the rental rates are entered. This is where the rental information is entered. This is where the QC information. And notice that this is where you could get really crazy and tell it the default checking for all of them, or rental return, rental shipment. Folks actually print inspection sheets that are full of a bunch of check boxes that need to be performed. Of course, depending on each inspection, you could tell it's a check box. What are the valid numbers and range it to enter, or is it a date that they're going to enter if it's an annual inspection that they need to. Now, of course, based on the setting here, whether you do ship is loading and performing the function when you're shipping the rental or returning rental or doing a PO receipt or doing a kit assembly, information gets loaded in this screen where you would basically be doing performing this function. Market, is it complete? Is it assigned? Is it in process? You could capture signature for each line item, or for that order, you can bring up that transaction and see all the QC functions that need to be performed, that PO receipt, or for that rental going on, or for that kit assembly. And this, of course, is logged, so you can see who did what inspection. Now, if I bring up any one of these transactions, then I'll see information that is tracked for that specific the unit number. So this is unit number 2020 TR6 of that trailer, and I'm able to see if I have a fixed asset number in the Acumatica fixed asset module. I would see that, the meter reading for it. I would see the equipment information. I would see notes entered, everything every time the product went out, product came back. If it was on rent and I swapped it with a different number, what date, and basically that's for metered information. The nice thing about with swapping is we let you bring a product back, send the product without doing a complete return and a new shipment and having to reconcile the billing. Basically, the system continues with the billing of the new unit. We got generated invoices here. You could decide if you want to post costs to general ledger, if you need to prep the product for return. Equipment costs, be sure your profitability for every piece of equipment, how much you paid for it, total of all costs, total of all revenues, and what the value is, scheduled services for it, the log for scheduled services, and any repair work you've done for it is also tracked in here. So very feature-rich product. Of course, if we go back to our rental orders, we can see how you would start the rental return and invoicing processes for it. Got to do a few backs and hopefully get to a rental transaction. And I think by that time, it will be probably about time I need to basically wrap up my part of the demonstration and give it back to Jay. So here is for that item that we process, this is where you start the rental return process, rental invoice process. The idea being that you wanted to show the whole cycle. So if you remember, we entered the transaction for 4 months. Its system was going to generate an invoice on the 10th of each month. We could see that, or we could just go return it, or just give it any date. and it would generate an invoice for that date range. Not that we've actually done it. Now, at any time you see availability, you can give it any date range, and it will see what invoices should be generated by that date. But it's going to do an invoicing for a date of 03/22/2022, and it will show that, and I can generate an invoice for that. I see that transaction, and I can go through and do the returns for that as well. Show you what QC functions it's triggered for it to be done. So it's 10:53. You saw the return. I'm just going to start the. I'm sorry, you saw the invoice generation. I'm going to start the return process. I'm going to leave it at that, and then see if you have any questions to answer, any functions to perform. So here is the rental return. Now, most of these functions could be performed from the order entry screen if your operation is such that your customer service rep does those functions, or could be done from the menu if your operation is such that different individuals in the warehouse run the return process or do the invoice generation and accounting as opposed to in the rental desks. Jay, I'm done with that. 10:54. I think I stop at this point.
Great. Thank you very much, Alec. Granted, there's in an hour, trying to be respectful of everybody's time. There's a lot to cover. Essentially, our objective was to give a little highlight about how we're able to address needs in the distribution world, field service world. Alec was finishing up on rental, but also manufacturing. There is a lot of common requirements across those industries and needs. That's where our specialty lies. We would be happy to get into more detail about your specific needs. If you have any questions, you can type them in now to the GoToMeeting or reach out to us and get anything, get any additional questions that you have answered. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in from anybody. With that, let me say thank you and appreciate your time and be well.
Bye-bye. Thank you.